British design is revered around the world, and our creative industries are responsible for £76.9 billion annually and provide over 5% of UK jobs. Leading figures within UK design discuss the challenges, innovations, and future of this vital industry.
People often ask me what good design is. Good design is the stuff you don't notice. Bad design is the stuff that you do notice. Good design makes things work and keeps things working smoothly.
The satisfaction from taking a black and white set of words as the brief and turning it into a three-dimensional building or an interior is very satisfying. And if you can actually, within that space, create and shape things, that's got a great impact, not just on the designer who's doing it, but actually when you then sit back and look at it again and see that people are using it the way that you were given the brief to use it, there's great satisfaction in that.
Here in the UK, good ergonomics is becoming far more mainstream rather than a niche, which it has been in the past. It's nice to see that it's a major factor now in the design process rather than purely aesthetics. I think we're learning a lot from our Scandinavian neighbours. And you know, history has told us, you know, with all the absenteeism and musculoskeletal problems people are experiencing at work, that the ergonomic functions of a chair are critical, whereby I feel they were left behind in the past.
It's a very personal thing for an SME to spend a lot of money on designing their office. They've got very clear ideas on what they want. It's never the same as the client before. And for us to just go in with a bulk standard product just wouldn't work. Whatever you want, we will try and achieve for you, because we know that what you're doing is your thing. It's a big thing. You're not going to do it again for at least 5 years, probably 10. So it's a massive investment. It's a massive decision-making process. And we try and make it as easy as we possibly can.
The role of the workplace has changed hugely, and offices are increasingly being designed to incorporate remote working, collaboration, and new technology.
The fascinating thing for me at the moment is what's a workplace. The way that we can actually work remotely means that we have to rethink the way that we interact with each other. We have to rethink the way that we use communications. We have to rethink the way that we use technology. And I think we have to redesign, in many instances, the sort of workplace that we have. People want to work in creative spaces where they can interact and they can develop ideas and they can cooperate with each other. And I think that's changing the whole nature of the way that our workplaces are developed.
Work is no longer somewhere you go necessarily, it's something you do. And as a result of that big step change in technology, it allows people to work in multiple locations, whether they're working from home, whether they're working from an airport, whether they're working from a hotel room. And they need to stay connected. They need to be able to collaborate and communicate effectively, irrespective of location.
Agile working really means providing workspaces and settings that support a whole range of different activities. And one of the key things about it is that these spaces tend not to be owned. So in an organisation where you've got lots of different people doing lots of different tasks, they actually book the facility that they need to complete those tasks with their colleagues when they want them. And therefore, what that often means is you get away from having one person, one desk, which is historically how it's always been. Now, there's quite a lot of fear around that, because one of the things that people feel uncomfortable about is, I'm turning up to work today and I might not have a desk to sit at. Well, that might be true, but the thing is, maybe it's not a desk that you need. Maybe actually it's a meeting facility. Maybe you're only actually going to check emails for 20 minutes and then go and see a client, or lots of different things. So it is about providing a whole variety of settings that allow people to support the tasks that they want to do at that particular time. There is, I think, a difficulty in some organisations where what you have around you, so I've got a nice desk by the window with a good chair and it's mine, and I've got my pictures of my family and all of those things, that is attached psychologically to a feeling of worth. So when you then say we're going to have unallocated desking and we're only going to have 80 desks for 100 people, that sense of worth is in danger of being undermined. So you have to disassociate the sense of worth from the physicality of the furniture in the environment. So what you have to then do is put loads of other facilities that really help that person do their job better, and then they can come to terms with the fact that they have lost something which is very personal to them. And to be honest, in some organisations that takes longer than others. We find often people have fears around this, that, well, I'll get there and there won't be anywhere for me to go, is a typical fear. But the truth of the matter is that actually working in an environment like that, 4-6 weeks in, they're all fine with it, because they understand that actually there's lots of places to go, and those places were better and support them more effectively with the right technology, the right tools than they had before.
Although the initial financial outlay of new workspaces can be significant, there are a number of options available to lessen the upfront cost.
The biggest challenge in any project is when you have the constraints of the building. That can often be difficult to resolve, because it does then in turn mean budget, which is then eating into budget that you could use to do things like furniture or colour or internal staircases, for example. If you've got a building that's got inherent problems or issues with old-fashioned mechanical or services, you've got to put that right first, really, and that makes it a challenge. And again, if you've got the architecture of the building that doesn't necessarily lend itself for you to divide the space up easily, I think the most difficult challenge is when you have a client that's not necessarily got their own plan in place, when they're not particularly organised or they're not clear on what it is they want to achieve. You'd be very surprised at the number of clients that we have that are not even sure on the number of staff they've got. They're not even sure of how they can say to you, well, from day one we've got 200 people, but we will grow by 20%. And that's quite difficult. That gives you a challenge, because how do you design something for what? You don't know what it is, you've not told me.
Clients have an idea of what something's going to cost in their head, and then the designer comes along and tells them that that's not enough. I've never ever had a client assume it's going to be more than the designer tells them. I don't think ever. So clients think they're going to spend 50,000, and then when the designer comes and looks at the space and says, well, actually what you want is going to cost 100 or 150. If the client only has a budget or cash of 50, then that's what they have to have. So either they take different space, or they do a different job, or they downscale it, dramatically from what they really want. Now, if you can say as a designer to a client, well, okay, have you thought perhaps about spreading the cost? So actually, yes, the capital cost of this would be 100,000, but actually spread over 5 years, you're talking roughly £2,000 a month, for argument's sake. Suddenly that opens up a huge amount of opportunity for the client to say, okay, well, actually £2,000 a month, that's very achievable, less than a member of staff. I can afford that. And in actual fact, how about if we budgeted £2,500 a month, or even £3,000 a month? And suddenly that project has gone from 50,000 to 200,000, and suddenly they can have this beautiful environment that they want their staff to work in, that they want their clients to see. Historically, leasing companies didn't really understand furniture and fit out. They'd never really done it, and they didn't really like it. So we picked our funding partners specifically. They were the ones that we thought would understand it and would get to grips with what we're funding. Because if you think about what we're funding things that are fundamentally intangible. So they had to understand actually what's the risks, how can we finance something like this? And it's taken us a number of years to get them comfortable with that. And it's put us in a very unique position, because those funding partners now trust us, know that we specialise, and will probably give us access to funds that the customers wouldn't get otherwise.
The office furniture and fit out market in the UK is worth conservatively £2 or £3 billion per annum. Now we finance a small proportion of that, but clearly there's a great opportunity there for a lot of companies to be looking at leasing rather than spending cash or bank facilities on their fit out projects. The leasing market in the UK in particular is still really in its infancy, and it's still not a widely used idea or concept. However, UK organisations are now catching on to the benefits of leasing, what can be included within a leasing project, and how beneficial it can be to the company.
For a profit-making organisation, leasing is very, very tax efficient and cost effective. Basically, the lease payments are 100% allowable against taxable profit. So anybody that's paying corporation tax, or actually if you're a partnership, so a firm of solicitors, for example, deal with a lot of those, they're generally partnerships or LLPs, they pay 40-45% tax. They can actually offset the lease payment against their profit, and they don't pay tax on that amount. So actually that's a significant saving for a large taxpayer. So that is something that most people actually aren't aware of. It's probably not the driving force why they would choose leasing, but it's absolutely an added bonus when they realise that.
The tax benefits and tax breaks can offset the cost of that leasing to actually make leasing cheaper than paying cash. And certainly when you take into consideration the fact that cash has a value within the business, and so therefore could be can be used within the business to generate more capital and more profits. Once you take the two things into consideration, the benefits of leasing far outweigh the cons.
No one wants to sign a lease for more than 5 years now because they don't know where the business will be. How big will it be? It might be bigger, it might be smaller, they might have made an acquisition, who knows? So that speed of change, we really have to try very hard to accommodate that. And that's quite difficult because buildings are bricks and mortar and they're expensive and it's quite hard to build in that flexibility. So we are seeing the rise in new products that allow us to plan space and divide space effectively without impacting the structure of a building. So you can, if you decide you've finished after your 5 years, you can pick a lot of it up and take it with you. It's not dead money. You've not built lots of partitions. You've not changed all of the services. So I think that's one trend, this kind of this flexibility and willingness to tie yourself into big financial commitments that are going to be difficult to get out of when your business changes.
Absenteeism is one of the biggest costs to employers, and businesses are increasingly employing innovative office designs to improve employee well-being and productivity.
We're being asked as workplace designers and specialists to help our clients create workspaces that really help support well-being. And there's a whole host of things. There are some physical things that you can do in the environment, but also there are cultural issues within organisations as well. So having really good policies, encouraging people to come and talk to management about the issues that they have in their workplace. But there's a lot of really easy things that customers can do that really make a difference. So looking at the kind of furniture that you have, there's a lot in the press at the moment about standing while you're at work. It's become a very hot topic in the UK. It's been really prevalent all over Europe. We're very late into this whole issue of the fact that if you stand during your working day, you're far more likely to keep mobile, lower your blood pressure, reduce back problems and sort of muscle wastage type things. All of a sudden, we're finding that organisations are really asking us to provide environments where people have a choice about how they do their work. So they're not sat at a desk, trapped in front of a PC in a fairly immobile way for 8 hours.
More days are lost in sickness due to back problems than any other cause. I mean, a healthy workforce is a happy workforce. And needless to say, a happy workforce is a profitable, productive workforce. So the ergonomic element to get people comfortable at their work is vitally important, not just for the end user, but for the actual company themselves. It's a win-win situation. It's important when designing products for disabled users to be aware of their needs and requirements, which can be very far-reaching and very varied. It's critical that people with disabilities are consulted from the design stage all the way through to manufacture. That way they can take into account the specific requirements of that end user. With regard to seating, obviously it depends on the nature of their condition, but now we can produce chairs and supply chairs with all kinds of adaptations depending on their requirements and their disability needs.
Recent innovations within design are enabling the manufacturing industry to produce more effective products, which can be adopted into all industries quicker than previously possible.
Technological advancements in the manufacturing sector has paid dividends, not only in the speed of production, but the adaptability. Many of our end users need specific requirements or adaptations to seats, and that can be now done whereby before it was very much a bespoke element. That is now actually incorporated in the manufacturing process. From an ergonomic perspective, there's far more adaptations and options, whereby before it was very much a one chair fits all. Without trying to sound patronising, it's very important people are not taught how to sit, but how to sit properly. We find most people, when we visit them on site, don't actually know how to use their chair. It only takes 5 minutes, but it's important considering you might be spending a large portion of your day sitting at your desk in a chair to get it comfortable and set up right for you. More importantly, if it's a hot desking situation and you might be using different workstations, that first 5 minutes, first thing in the morning, is critical to get the desk and the chair, in fact the whole workstation, set up for you so that you're comfortable for your working day. In a recent study with the British Heart Foundation, whose latest campaign is to get Britain standing, they've discovered that if you're sitting for more than 4 hours a day, you're 100% more likely to be affected with heart disease. More and more people are being made more aware of the ergonomic element of their workstation. So to match that, there's always new products being developed and superseding old ones, literally week by week.
As this industry is so closely connected with many other sectors, collaboration and the sharing of ideas is vital. Workspaces are now being designed to embrace this idea and enable quicker and easier communication.
R&D and design is an interesting one. For me, the important thing is the way that different disciplines collaborate. Design in isolation is not the answer. Research and development in isolation is not the answer. But one of the things that I think is being increasingly demonstrated is how different disciplines working together can produce really much better results. It's interesting, there's a statistic about Nobel Prize winners and the high percentage of Nobel Prize winners who have done art subjects in their background as well as STEM subjects. And not everyone is lucky to be able to bring together all of these different skills. So I think it's beholding upon all of us to, in manufacturing and in service industry, to bring those different skills together to really stimulate new ideas and innovation.
We're all, as individuals, are all more connected now than we ever have done, and that's a big change in recent years. And it's come on quite significantly, probably in the last 5 years, and that's down to a couple of kind of key drivers. One is that connectivity is now more readily available. Now we all have access to 3G, 4G connectivity. We've got a lot of people have got access to fibre, and this is in the home as much in the workspace. So the cost associated with putting large pipes into businesses has come down hugely. And what does that mean? Well, it means that that alone has driven a lot of the technology that people use, not just in their personal lives, but also in the workplace. And that's around the different types of collaboration and communication technologies. So as a result of that, that's driven the need, or driven the opportunity, more importantly, to provide tools and technologies that support improved communication, collaboration, irrespective of where you are. For example, video conferencing has been around for many years, but historically it's been complex, it's been expensive, it's been difficult to deploy, and actually the quality experience has been pretty poor. It's had a great business concept about how you connect people irrespective of location. You can connect more people more readily. However, the ability to deploy that at scale has always been challenging, but not anymore. Connectivity allows more people to be more connected irrespective of location on multiple types of devices. So that innovation alone has driven the abilities for companies to invest more and benefit from collaboration technologies. And there's a whole range of different technologies, but what we've seen is a massive step change in the last 5 years around that. And as a result of that, as an enabler, that's enabled organisations to adopt more agile working practice.
We talk about X, Y, Z generation these days, so my children's generation in effect. They've grown up with mobile technology, so they don't want to be tethered to a desk. They want to be able to work wherever they are. We all work on trains these days, we work on aeroplanes. So it's creating different spaces within the building that enable people to work as they want to. And if people are working in a way that they feel comfortable, invariably they're more productive. And then also enabling them to share those ideas and thoughts with more people on a more ad hoc basis rather than just coming to a meeting.
Housing is a widely discussed topic, and the need to produce more housing for our growing population is immense. Design looks set to play a critical role in ensuring these homes are sustainable and provide a long-term solution.
The great British public understand and appreciate design, and we know that design can make a huge difference to getting houses and homes built quicker, more effectively. We want to build houses and homes and neighbourhoods that survive and last and grow, not get things built quickly. I have a huge concern that in the drive that we have at the moment to more housing, that we will sacrifice quality for quantity. And the reality is that if we focus on quality, I believe we'll get more homes built more quickly, more effectively.
My office is based in the northwest of England, and one of the colleagues I work most closely with works in Bournemouth, and we actually video conference on a webcam from our PCs every day. And I don't feel that it's a problem, but I don't want him spending 5 hours in a car to get to me when actually we can have a quick hour, we have our meeting, takes an hour, and none of us have wasted any time travelling. So those kind of things, whilst individually they work very well, when you then multiply that across a huge organisation, especially organisations that are multi-site or even different countries, you can actually save huge amounts of time and huge amounts of money as long as everyone understands how to use it and actually have some protocols in place around that. It's also very good for the green agenda not to be travelling, and we work with organisations who have actively encouraged and invested in that kind of technology and the training to allow people to feel that they don't have to be in the same room with somebody to have a useful meeting.
The demand and reliance on design has never been greater, and the industry must bring through the next generation of talent to safeguard this rapidly changing industry. Partnerships between university and industry look crucial in achieving this.
We try and we do work with some of the local universities. What we would do is engage with them. In the second year, we would go in and sponsor the students, so that offer in the summertime a sort of placement for summer. You need to really have a good 4-week, 5-week period where you would have a graduate sitting in the office learning a bit about the business. The third year of that same class from that same university, we would set a project as part of the syllabus for third year. And then that helps us follow that student through to final year. And then in the final year, if they've progressed and still sort of carried forward to how we feel they have, we would offer a placement. And that's how we get graduate coming through our business. And we've had some success in that, actually.
If you go back to art colleges and talk to young students and ask them why they're doing design or why they're looking at the creative industries as a subject, they often say because they want to make a real difference in the world. And I think design can make a real difference. And we've got many examples of work we've done where we've looked at how design can help dementia, how it can help independent people who are older and living independently, and how that can make a real difference. We need to make sure that we have sufficient homegrown designers coming through our education system. All design schools currently are facing a challenge of finances. Increasingly you're seeing significant numbers of foreign students, which I applaud, but I want not at the expense of homegrown British talent coming through design schools.
We've seen a big increase in the partnerships and involvement of research institutions and universities with manufacturers in partnership when designing new furniture. It's very encouraging to see that manufacturers are taking into account new development, new research when designing their new products. Manufacturers are now incorporating ergonomists, physiotherapists, chiropractors, specialist medical sectors in the development of their new products to make them more ergonomic. And obviously monitoring the end user's requirements is a major part of that, and they can then be tailored, the product can be tailored to suit what people need. I mean, an example would be, there's been a lot of interest of late with regarding to sitting for long periods. So this has encouraged people, manufacturers predominantly, to increase the ergonomic qualities of seating and in fact the desking too.
The expectation of what design can achieve is growing faster than sometimes our education system can cope with. So keeping up with the way that the world is changing is really important. Somebody quoted me the other day that students going into design today don't know the titles of the jobs that they're going to go into when they leave. And I think that's, that says to me that we need to have a more agile way of understanding what industry and the world is looking for and making sure that our education system can keep up with it.
With the design industry advancing and growing rapidly, how will it continue to meet the growing needs and become sustainable for future generations?
I don't think the office is dead. I think people need that interaction. They need a human interaction. One of the issues we sometimes see, in fact, is if actually you can do your job from your sitting room and not be stuck in traffic, why would you go to the office? Well, you would go because you need that human interaction. You need to feel that you're participating. You need to have a sense of belonging. So when you arrive at the office, and you might only be there one day a week, you've got to know how to use it. There is a space for you to go. There is a space for you to be with your colleagues and have a catch up. Otherwise, you might as well just stay at home. But human nature isn't like that. People feed off other people. So I think we will always need offices. They might just change shape a little.
We're fortunate to have almost a roadmap of where we should be, ergonomically speaking, from Scandinavia. They are very much more advanced, so we can see what needs to be done. It's there, it's quite clear, and we can learn a lot from them in the advancement of height adjustable desking and ergonomic seating. We've always been, 15 or 20 years behind, and it's critical that we bridge that gap and get ourselves up to speed with their designs and their ergonomic concepts, which have been slowly being drip-fed through for the last 20 years. We really need to now speed that process up, and whereby what was seen as a niche market is now becomes more mainstream office supply.
I think it was great news recently when Jonathan Ive was made Chief Design Officer of Apple. And just to give you a bit of context, Apple is, as I understand, the largest corporation in the world. Jonathan Ive was recruited by Steve Jobs. Steve, sadly no longer with us. Steve was a visionary who recognised in a British-born industrial designer trained in Northumbria, somebody who had shared the same vision of him about the attention to detail and developing a product that really worked for human beings and human beings would really want. And that's why Apple, I think, is as successful as it is. That, for me, epitomizes the role that design can play by being at the very heart of an organization. So I predict that in 10 years' time, in the same way that now every organization has a chief marketing officer, I reckon that in 10 years' time, every decent organization will have a chief design officer.